that you could experience the best life ever, would you try? Are you heading along the right path in life? Welcome to Change Your Mind, Change Your Life with your hosts, Jim and Lynn Swearingen. In our program, you'll learn to dispel the myths surrounding hypnosis, and by doing so, start to piece together the life that you've always wanted. Now, here are your hosts, Jim and Lynn Swearingen.
Welcome to Change Your Mind, Change Your Life. I'm Jim.
And I'm Lynn.
Bringing you uncommon solutions for common problems. Our goal is to give you the knowledge and tools you need to let go of limiting beliefs and tap the power of your mind. You can't live the life of your dreams. You can't have fulfillment. Life is an adventure. Come and walk with us today.
Thank you, sweetheart. In 1969, American Health magazine reported findings from a study by Alfred A. Barrios, Ph.D., of such importance that you can still see his findings posted today on the websites of many hypnotherapists, including our own. An updated study called Hypnotherapy, a Reappraisal by Dr. Barrios was published in Psychotherapy, Theory, Research, and Practice in the spring of 1970. The study clearly demonstrated that hypnosis is more effective and works more quickly than traditional talk therapy or psychoanalysis, although those are very valuable techniques and methods. These were his findings. People in psychoanalysis had only a 38% recovery after 600 sessions. Those in behavior therapy enjoyed a 72% recovery after 22 sessions. But those who received hypnotherapy had a 93% recovery rate after only 6 sessions. Today we're honored to have Dr. Barrios here to talk to us about self-actualization, full potential, fulfillment, and the power of self-belief. These are all words that carry a lot of meaning, words that represent the search for meaning in our own lives, each of us on our own unique path. We all have to discover our own way, but one thing is certain, it all begins with a basic belief in ourselves and, in this case, the power of our minds.
That's right. And our guest today founded a program called SBC, Self-Programmed Control, which will teach you to fully believe in yourself. When you follow this program, it builds self-actualization, so you can move on to achieve your full potential, attaining greater health, happiness, and fulfillment in life.
His step-by-step approach goes far beyond the power of positive thinking. The main advantages of the SPC approach are immediate feedback and positive results, which guarantee continued practice of the new behavior you desire until all of a sudden it becomes second nature to you.
Clinical psychologist Dr. Alfred Barrios received his bachelor's degree from Caltech and his PhD from UCLA. He's a recognized authority on the power of the word and its effect on human behavior. Dr. Barrios invented the stress control card. He's author of the book Toward Greater Freedom and Happiness.
Dr. Barrios has presented self-programmed control, SPC, seminars for thousands of medical professionals and corporate and community groups. SPC's effectiveness has been demonstrated with students at UCLA and other colleges and in a number of ongoing addiction and alcoholism programs in California and Texas.
In 1996, Dr. Barrios received the first annual Cancer Federation Award in Psychoneuroimmunology and was nominated for Norman Cousins Award in Mind Body Health. Dr. Barrios, we're honored and delighted to have you on the show today. I think your work is fantastic. Welcome and thank you for being our guest.
Welcome, Dr. Barrios.
That's my pleasure to be on, and I'm looking forward to your questions and my ability to answer them.
Why don't we start with the basics? What is SPC and what are the goals?
Well, SPC stands for Self-Programmed Control. This is my euphemism for self-hypnosis. When I first introduced it was when I was teaching my program for helping students at East Los Angeles Junior College to avoid dropping out of school. And I was using the terminology of self-hypnosis, and I was getting fantastic results, but the administration was a little wary of the term hypnosis, and they asked me if I could come up with a better, a more acceptable term. And that's when I came up with this term. And I think it is much better than the term self-hypnosis, because hypnosis has so many misconceptions associated with it. And the goal of self-program control is to help free people of all their negative programming and help them achieve the highest levels, the level of self-actualization, where people are at their full and highest potential. And I'm anxious to tell you as much as you want to know about it.
That's wonderful. You know, I was so excited when you called to know that you would make time to be on this show. And yeah, hypnosis is a term that really does scare people away. And I think your self-control is a much, more succinct way of saying what you can actually do with hypnosis. So why don't you explain a little bit about the SPC techniques that you use for self-hypnosis and induction?
The SPC techniques that I developed are unique self-hypnosis techniques that I feel are more effective than your standard self-hypnosis techniques. And the reason for that is that they have a lot more immediate positive feedback associated with the induction. People can see immediately results, and that is very important for building what I call the belief factor. You see, in my theory of hypnosis, which was part of my PhD dissertation at UCLA, I define hypnosis as a state of heightened belief. This was the definition that Pavlov preferred and also Skinner preferred, and I agreed with them that would be a much better term. And in a sense, when you achieve a state of deep hypnosis, you are in a high state of belief, a heightened state of belief. And to me, that is a very highly focused state of mind. Because I define belief as concentration on a thought to the exclusion of anything that would contradict that thought. So in a state of heightened belief, your mind is really completely focused on the positive goal or thought you're trying to program in. Now, the reason why hypnosis is so powerful and so valuable is because it facilitates positive change. And the reason it facilitates positive change is because it can place you in this very highly focused state where the negative programming that usually interferes with your attempt to change, or your attempt to reprogram, is pushed aside. It's blocked so that you can now more easily reprogram. And that is a major, major advantage, and I think it's what's missing from many of the self-improvement programs that are out there today. They do not give you a systematic means of facilitating reprogramming. Now, the techniques that I developed, as I said, as a result of my PhD dissertation, where I wrote my theory of hypnosis, have this immediate feedback characteristic. So a person can immediately see something happening. And I can give you an example of one of the techniques to show you what I'm talking about. One of my first techniques was what I call the pendulum technique. Now, don't assume that it's the standard hypnotic technique where the hypnotist waves a pendulum in front of your eyes. That's not what I'm talking about. I have the individual, the subject, holding a paperclip on a piece of thread that's about a foot long, with his elbow resting on the arm of the chair. And the pendulum or the paperclip is motionless to begin with. And then I start him by step one. I tell him, now focus on the thought that the pendulum is now going to start to swing from left to right. Look for it to start swinging in this direction. And the person is amazed to find that little paperclip is starting to swing automatically. He's not moving it voluntarily or consciously. It's just automatically moving. And then I lead him through a series of similar steps. The next step is I tell him to focus on the pendulum swinging in a circular direction. Then the pendulum is going to gradually drop from his hand, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a series of steps that each step produces an immediate result. And that, I think, is why these SPC techniques are so powerful.
You know, I so much agree with that. When I was being trained, when I was certified in hypnosis, our instructor did that same technique with everyone in the class. And even though we were all there already believing in the power of hypnosis, it was absolutely astounding to see how we responded to those thoughts making the pendulum move. It was really quite exciting, and it does heighten that belief dramatically.
Yeah, and that in that state of heightened belief that results from these techniques, as I said, the mind is highly focused. And if you use the analogy of a laser beam, you can get the feel of how much more powerful your mind is when it's in this highly focused state. A laser beam is actually ordinary light that's been treated so that whereas before all the rays of natural light are going in different directions and in different phases and kind of knocking themselves out, so to speak, now all the rays are going in only one single direction and all at the same phase. In other words, you've eliminated the conflict by concentrating that ray, and you know what laser beams can do. They can cut right through thick steel. So that's the analogy I like to use to get across how powerful, much more powerful the mind is when it's in this heightened state of belief. I mentioned that the first applications were in the educational system. This was in 1969, 1970, 71, 72. I had the opportunity to test my program with students who were on scholastic probation. And my idea was to do three things. First, and most importantly, to show them how powerful their minds were and how with that power of the mind, they could accomplish anything they set their mind to, including becoming A students instead of failure students.
And were these, Dr. Barrios, were these already students that were committed, had no interest in learning, and were ready to drop out?
Yeah, these students were dropping out primarily because they had a negative mental mindset that they were failures. So they had failed so many times previously coming through the school system that's how they felt. That they were failures. They were no good at school. Why bother? But with this SPC approach, I showed them the power of their minds, and I built what is now called self-efficacy. This was a term that wasn't even invented at that time, but I was using it. Albert Bandura, eventually in 1977, wrote the book on self-efficacy, which means belief in one's capabilities. And once a student can believe in his capabilities, then I introduce him to the other two factors, the learning techniques. Learning techniques are very important. Study techniques, memory techniques, problem-solving techniques, sure. But if these students have this negative mindset and you try to teach them these learning techniques, it goes in one ear and out the other. And as a matter of fact, at the school, I ran a controlled experiment. I actually had a comparison group, a control group, students, 89 students that were being taught study techniques, standard study techniques, to see if that would help them avoid dropping out. And they had a 56% dropout rate, even though they were being taught study techniques. My students, the ones I was teaching these SPC techniques to, had a dropout rate of only 16%. And again, now because of their high self-efficacy, belief in their capabilities, they now were receptive to the learning techniques that I taught them, the memory, the study techniques, problem-solving techniques. And on top of that, I also worked on building their emotional intelligence. That's another term that has recently come into the fore. And here I was using these concepts way before they were even labeled. Emotional intelligence and self-efficacy. So the combination of the three was what produced these fantastic results. And I had such good results there that they asked me to go to UCLA and teach their class to help their minority students survive at UCLA. They were having problems keeping minority students in. They were dropping out like flies. And they gave me a class of 362 students.
Oh, my God.
Okay, now, at East LA Junior College, I had 105 students. That was big enough right there. But now I had 362 students. And this goes to show that size of the class is not the problem if you want to eliminate dropout. You've got to work on the self-efficacy factor. And I got similar positive results with these minority students. And this, at East LA Junior College, it was primarily Hispanic minority, and at UCLA was a combination of Hispanic and African American. And here's the interesting thing about this program at UCLA. I ran into one of those students many years later at an event where 5 people were running for mayor of Los Angeles. And this one person came up to me. I was actually going to approach him and tell him about my program for the schools in case he did become mayor. But he spotted me and he says, "I know you. You were my professor at UCLA." His name, Antonio Villaraigosa. He is the current mayor of Los Angeles, and he's also the chairman or co-chairman of the Democratic convention that's coming up next week. So this is one of the positive things that have come out, and I feel strongly that this is the solution to the dropout problem. You know, the idea that it's up to the parents. The parents have to get the students involved. Well, with many of these students, the parents themselves have been failures in school, so it's like asking the blind to lead the blind. And they also say, well, you got to have smaller classrooms. Well, I just showed you that I had 362 students at UCLA, and I did great with them. And so, the other solution that's been offered is you got to fire all the bad teachers and hire only good teachers. Well, I don't think the unions are going to go for that. And my solution is one that would work ideally for everybody concerned, because I can teach my program to teachers in a 3-hour workshop and turn all teachers into good teachers. The key to being a good teacher, I feel, is getting students to believe in themselves. And that's what these techniques do. The SPC techniques are catalysts. They immediately open the students' eyes, and it's amazing the results. And in the progress reports of the students, I had them keep progress reports. It was a 9-week class, and each week I told them to write in their progress report. And after a few weeks, they said, "I can't believe how much of a positive change has been in my life in just a few weeks." So that's just one of the advantages of this program. I've also applied it in the area of medicine, in the area of welfare reform, in the area of drug rehab, and gotten fantastic results in all areas.
That was a tremendous validation, the mayor of LA. And I wonder if you just mentioned the other areas you use this in medicine, drug rehab, welfare. That's interesting. Are there any other exciting applications that you've got really exciting results from?
Oh yeah, no.
Share? Just
to give you an idea of how powerful this program is, these techniques that I use. I was asked to work with this woman who had paranoid schizophrenia. Her sister knew of my work with hypnosis, and she was very impressed because I had cured her son of heroin addiction in just 3 sessions.
Wow.
So she asked me if I would work with her sister, who was a paranoid schizophrenic, and really a full-blown one, to the point where her husband had left the home because he was afraid for his life. She now was getting to be homicidal, in any case, I cured this woman in 1 3-hour session. Can you believe that? 1 3-hour session. I turned her.
I'd love to hear more about that, because I know a lot of people think that you can't use hypnosis for people with schizophrenia. We had someone else on the show, Genevieve Martin Bernard, quite a few months ago, who does work with people with mental illnesses like that. How did you help her so quickly?
Well, in the first half of the session, I was able to communicate with her. You see, I had the advantage of the prestige factor because she knew I had cured her nephew of heroin addiction. So she believed in me from the beginning. And I was able to draw her out and find out what was it that was underlying her schizophrenia. Well, she had a very negative self-image as a result of her life's experiences. She had been a heroin addict, a prostitute to make enough money to pay for her habit. She'd also sold heroin to make enough money, and she had been arrested and spent 5 years in prison. So one day, her younger sister, not the one who introduced her to me, in a fit of anger over something or other, threw all this in her face and basically said, "Oh, you're nothing, look at this and look at that." And that snapped her. She snapped, and from that point on, she was now figuring nobody could possibly love her. Everybody was out to get her. That's what paranoid schizophrenia is. And under hypnosis, now I used, to put her in this state of heightened belief, I used the pendulum technique that I mentioned earlier, and she responded beautifully to it. And under this state of heightened belief, I basically told her that she was a fine person. She had a lot of fine qualities, which I also found out in talking to her in the first half of the session, and that she, of course, was loved by her husband and by other people. Now, if other people tried to tell her this under ordinary circumstances, of course it would go in one ear and out the other. But in this highly focused state of mind, all the negative programs are blocked, and I was able to get through, and she made a complete recovery. Within the week, she was off to San Francisco with her husband on a trip, and 6 months later, when I checked up on her again, she was still doing just great. So I tell this story because, as you know, schizophrenia is one of the most difficult illnesses to heal, and I was able to do so with just one session. Now, I don't recommend just one session. I do recommend follow-up sessions to make sure you've gotten all the negatives out of the picture. But usually 6 to 9 sessions are more than enough. That's the beauty of the use of hypnosis and the use of these SBC techniques. My class with these students was usually around 8 or 9 weeks.
I'm glad you brought that up, because people are always looking for a magic bullet, thinking that hypnosis is going to magically cure them in one session. And sometimes you do have that remarkable experience that you did with this woman, where everything just comes together and change happens. But I think, we both think you're absolutely right. 6 to 9 sessions is usually about what it takes when you're dealing with something serious.
Right.
Now, another positive result that I was very pleased with was my work with people who were on welfare, who were taking these work incentive programs where the government was figuring that if they somehow trained them in a certain way to do interviews properly, they'd be able to get jobs. And before I came along, they were having a very bad success rate. Their usual success rate was maybe 5 out of 18 or 28%. When I worked with them and used my SPC program to get them to believe in themselves now, to feel that they now were capable of doing a good job, and were capable of learning what they had to learn to do a good job, now I was able to get through to them. And my success rate was 90%. So it went from about 28% to 90%. And, I forgot to mention, one of the side benefits of my working with the students was the tremendous increase in success rate in eliminating substance abuse. Now, this was a side benefit of my program. I didn't even concentrate on that in the class. At the end of the class, I gave out a questionnaire asking them about their substance abuse problems and what changes might have taken place. And I had an average of 90% success rate with I'm talking about drugs and alcohol and cigarettes and overeating and even LSD and heroin, all of these things. And the reason why I felt they were able to achieve this success, even though I didn't even focus on it, was because I was able to help them in several key areas. One, of course, the area of knowing that they have control now and they can break free of whatever it is that's dragging them down. They also now had the ability to relax from within. They didn't have to resort to these drugs or alcohol or food to deal with their tensions. And the third thing, they now also were getting much more satisfaction out of life, more satisfaction out of school, and also their regular daily lives. And as a result, they didn't have to resort on substances to give them that pleasure because they now had constructive sources of pleasure. So this brings me to another important facet of the SPC program for schools. It not only helps turn F and failing students into A students, but it also teaches them life skills so that when they go out after they graduated, now they can get the most out of life. And that is the ultimate goal of the SPC program, to help people achieve their highest potential in life and the optimum amounts of happiness and fulfillment. And I'm very excited about the possibilities with my book, Towards Greater Freedom and Happiness, and also the little invention that goes along with it that I didn't even mention, my stress control biofeedback card.
Doctor, you were about to tell us about your theory about hypnosis. We also want you to tell us how people can reach you and how they can buy your products of one sort or another, especially your book.
Yeah, no, I'm more than happy to give you an insight into my theory of hypnosis. Now, the reason I decided to work on my theory of hypnosis, and it took many years. I was in graduate school for a total of 11 years because I decided to take on this area of hypnosis, which was pretty much an unknown when I first entered UCLA back in 1958 was when I entered it.
Oh.
Anyway, I had discovered hypnosis, and I thought it was a very useful, powerful tool to help people, and I could not understand why it wasn't being used. Why weren't doctors using it? And I came to the conclusion that the reason was that they didn't really understand it. It was too mystical, too magical, unscientific, and I thought, well, then if one could present a rational, logical explanation for how and why it worked and why it was so powerful, then it would be more acceptable. And so I worked on my theory of hypnosis. That was part of my PhD dissertation. And I'll give you a quick idea of the essence of what my theory says. Basically, the power of hypnosis comes from the power of concentrated thought. Okay, now this fits in with your theme: change your mind, change your life. Mm-hmm. The power of thoughts is the key, but ordinary thoughts or ordinary speech is like ordinary light. It's going in different directions, and there's too much conflict, and there's too many negatives. So, in the state of hypnosis, you basically are in a more focused state of mind because you've entered a state of heightened belief. Belief in what? Belief in the power of your mind, the power of thoughts. And in this heightened state of belief, your mind, as I said, is more focused, and as a result, you can reprogram more easily. You can make connections, new connections in the brain more easily. And this is why it's so much easier for people to change in the state of hypnosis. It's not some magical thing. It's just very logical and very rational. First of all, there's the power of words to produce automatic responses. And the example I used to get this across is the lemon demonstration. I tell people to imagine biting into a sour, tart and tangy lemon, and to really taste that lemon on the tip of their tongue, and bite into another lemon until they get a really sour taste. And pretty soon they're automatically, their mouths are watering. That's an automatic physiological response produced by the word or thought lemon. And in the state, in the hypnotic induction, what a hypnotic induction is, I define that as the giving of two or more suggestions such that a positive response to one increases the probability of responding to the next one because you've increased the belief factor. And now because their mind is already starting to be more focused, they can respond more strongly to the next suggestion, and so on. There's a compounding effect. So this is how I define hypnosis. And interestingly enough, this ties in with the whole concept of free will. You know, there's this question, is there free will or not? Do people really have the ability to make choices in their lives? And I answer the question by saying that all people have the potential for free will, but it has to be brought out. And that's what these self-hypnosis, self-program control techniques do. They show the individual through the heightened state of belief that they can have greater control over their subconscious behavior. That's what free will, how I define free will. Control over your subconscious behavior through concentrated thought. And I think that this is a very important point because this is something that's been argued back and forth over the centuries. Is there free will or not? And I say everybody has the potential, but very few people have learned how to develop that potential. Mm-hmm. And this is one way to do it. Self-program control, self-hypnosis. These are the ways. And I think that all humans need to have this greater ability so that if they find that they have to make changes in their lives, they can do it more instead of being frustrated and not being able to make changes. So I thought my theory of hypnosis has helped a lot, and people can read the theory if they want by going to my website. It's right on my website in the articles section. And my website is www.spccenter.com. SPC, of course, stands for Self-Program Control. So www.spccenter.com, go to my article section, and there's my article on free will. There's my commentary on my theory of hypnosis. There's my article, Hypnotherapy, a Reappraisal, that you mentioned earlier, Lynn. And there's my article on the SPC program for curing cancer. There's my article on the SPC program for eliminating the dropout problem. I think people will find these articles of great interest, and I would love to have them let me know their comments. Feel free to email me, and my email address is right there on the website. Again, the website, spccenter.com.
Dr. Barrios, I've actually printed out all of your articles. I encourage everybody to read those articles. They're very informative. There's a broad spectrum of subjects. And I'm glad you brought up free will, because that's one thing, regardless of what people come to see us for, there's always, it always involves helping them to reclaim their free will. Like you said, that you have the potential, but most of the people that we see aren't exercising it. They've begun reacting to life in a knee-jerk reaction without being thoughtful, just out of busyness or for other reasons. And that's a really powerful component of getting well, is being able to have that moment to choose, to make your own choice.
I think this is an important concept to get across to people, that there is hope for them, that they can have greater control over their own destiny instead of being just robots. Most people, unfortunately, are robots. They're marching along in step to the programs that have been programmed in since they were very young. Now, if they were all positive programs, that would be great. But unfortunately, there are a lot of negative programming going on. Well, there is a lot of negative programming going on. I'm very happy that I see my program is getting more attention. There are more people wanting to start it in their schools, and I urge anybody in the educational system to contact me. As I mentioned earlier, I can teach this program to teachers in 1 3-hour workshop. That's all it takes. Of course, there will be some follow-up, make sure they're doing everything correctly, to answer questions. But and it's amazing what these teachers have been able to do. By the way, in the articles in my website, you'll find letters from teachers and principals who extol the virtues of this program for education. There's also a letter from the mayor telling the superintendent of schools that he can state firsthand that this program works.
Yes, it's been an honor to have you here. And before we have to say goodbye, I'd like to give you a couple of minutes to tell people about your stress card program.
Sure. The stress card is called the Stress Control Biofeedback Card. I think most people are familiar with it, but for those that aren't, it's the size of a credit card. It has a little black square on it that's temperature sensitive, and it's basically a thermometer that changes colors from black to red to green to blue. And blue is set to come on at 95 degrees Fahrenheit, which has been determined to be the fingertip temperature necessary to achieve in order to get rid of most stress-related problems. So in other words, warm hands means you're relaxed. 95 degrees blue on the card is ideal. And on the back of the card, I have these 4 relaxation techniques. So actually, it's more than just a measure of stress. More importantly, it's a training tool to help people condition in an automatic relaxation response by going through the techniques on the back and seeing the change in the color, testing yourself before and after. And the card can actually be gotten at my website, and it's the ideal card for hypnotherapists or anybody in the health profession, because for instance, the hypnotherapist can have the person test themselves before and after hypnotic induction, and that card will go from black to blue, and that reinforces the hypnotic induction. Plus, if they're using it, if they need to work on stress reduction as one of the goals for their client, this is the ideal tool. The person works with it over a period of time. Whenever there's stress, they test themselves, they go through the relaxation techniques and turn the card blue. So biofeedback, I feel, and I've written about this, is actually a form of hypnotic induction. That's why it's so effective, because it produces immediate feedback, and this card is a biofeedback device. So it's actually a hypnotic induction tool as well. So, go to my website, www.spccenter.com, and find out all about the stress card. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. And you can also get whatever else you need by contacting me.
Well, thank you, Doctor. That's a really practical tool, a little card you can carry around with you and use it all day long to reinforce your results.
We need it.
We need that, yes. We'll be sending you an order for some of those. Dr. Barrios, it's been so exciting to have you on the show today. We really want to thank you for being here. And thank you in advance because I know you're coming back in 2 weeks, and in a moment I'm going to announce that. But it has been a pleasure today, Dr. Barrios.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's been my pleasure. I really enjoyed the opportunity to spread the word. People have to be educated as to the real powers of hypnosis and understand why hypnosis is such a powerful tool.